Walk to my car.
I can't do it.
Walk.
I can't. My leg's broken.
Walk. Walk! I don't care if your leg's broken. You're gonna walk.
I can't walk, dude. Hold on.
You're gonna
my
walk.
leg's broken. I just got thrown off the fucking balcony.
You didn't get thrown off. You jumped off. I saw you close the door. And you told me you jumped. Come on.
I do it my whole leg.
Mothers are generally supposed to protect their children. I think everyone would agree that no one should grow up fearing the people in their life, especially those introduced to them by their own parents. Thankfully, most of us can say that that's exactly how our childhoods went. However, sadly, not every child is so lucky. And unfortunately, that brings us to the story of poor little Victoria Martens. Victoria was born on August 23, 2006, and was said to be a sweet and thoughtful young girl. At the age of 10, she was living in the Arroyo Villas apartment complex on Albuquerque's west side in New Mexico with her mother and younger brother. She was a student at the Petroglyph Elementary School and attended gymnastics once a week. Her mother, Michelle Martens, appeared to be taking care of her children. Well, that is until she met a career criminal who would change their lives forever. But before we dive into that, an incident would take place in March of 2016. Michelle was dating a man named David Hernandez, and he had reportedly tried to kiss Victoria. Hernandez had a shady history consisting of sexual abuse against children, and in 2013, he was arrested for attempting to kidnap a 4-year-old girl. You would think that that would have been enough to stop him, but he was never charged in any of the cases, and the kidnapping charges were ultimately dropped. As for his attempt to kiss Victoria, well, Michelle was told it wasn't a crime, and therefore nothing could be done. With no other options, Michelle moved on with her life, but sadly not far enough. A few months later, in July of 2016, Michelle would meet 31-year-old Fabian Gonzalez on the dating website Plenty of Fish, and they would quickly move in together. All of this took place about a month before Victoria's 10th birthday. However, Gonzalez was no better than Hernandez and had a history of assault, including felony child abuse. About a month later, Gonzalez's cousin, 31-year-old Jessica Kelly, was released from prison and began staying at the apartment as well. Jessica also had a criminal history just like her cousin Gonzalez. Her criminal record included a sexual assault case in which she was accused of participating in a sexual assault against a fellow inmate. It was said that when the victim hid under the bed, Jessica grabbed her, pulled her out, and then kept watch at the doorway while the other inmate assaulted her. She was ultimately charged with conspiracy to commit criminal sexual assault, but in New Mexico, that charge doesn't require a person to register as a sex offender. On August 23, 2016, 4 days after Kelly was released from prison, it was Victoria's 10th birthday. Kelly was supposed to pick Victoria up from the school bus stop that day, but she never showed up. When Michelle texted Kelly to confirm that she had picked up Victoria, she never even responded. With no one around, Victoria went to a neighbor's apartment who texted Michelle letting her know that Victoria was trying to get in touch with her. Michelle and Gonzalez returned home a little after 5 p.m. and then left Victoria alone with Kelly several times that evening while they went off to buy drugs. Kelly was also doing drugs at night and was even captured on a jail phone call between her and her sister, who was incarcerated at the time, saying that she was tweaking and hallucinating. Kelly was clearly on drugs and in no state to safely watch Victoria. Around 7:05 p.m., neighbors reported having a conversation with Kelly and Victoria, but said that mid-conversation, Kelly interrupted Victoria and then forcibly dragged her back into the apartment by her hair. This would be the last time that Victoria was ever seen alive. Sometime after 7:05 p.m., Kelly says that an unknown man came by the apartment looking for Favo, which is Gonzalez's street name. He would tell Kelly that Gonzalez had messed up and knows what he did. Neighbors would then hear screams and a loud disturbance coming from the apartment. At 8:47 p.m., Michelle and Gonzalez finally arrived back at the apartment, but instead of going inside, they continued to sit in their car listening to music. Not even a minute later, neighbors would see Kelly carrying Victoria's deceased body out of the apartment wrapped in a blanket. However, when she noticed Michelle and Gonzalez sitting in their car, she quickly went back inside. A little while later, Michelle and Gonzalez finally exited their vehicle and made their way inside the apartment. Kelly then took Gonzalez to the side and informed him of Victoria's death. Instead of telling Michelle, they distracted her by asking her to make dinner. Afterwards, Michelle went on to bed, never once checking on Victoria. With Michelle now asleep, Kelly and Gonzalez proceeded to dismember Victoria's body in order to cover up the crime. They cleaned up the scene and placed her remains in the bathtub. Afterwards, Gonzalez joined Michelle in the bedroom. Hours later, at about 4:30 a.m. on August 24th, Kelly burst into their bedroom and began attacking them with an iron. She would end up leaving some pretty nasty looking injuries on their face, which can clearly be seen in their mugshots. After being attacked, they both fled the apartment, and neighbors who heard the commotion immediately called the police.
Jessica,
Oh my God.
come here. Come
No.
here. Come here.
I didn't do nothing.
Come here.
There's some shit that went down. No, I didn't do nothing.
Hey, stop. Stop. Stop it. Stop it.
I'm scared,
Stop
you
it.
guys. Ah!
Alright, relax. Relax.
My
Stop
leg.
flipping.
My leg.
Stop it. Stop
You
flipping.
guys.
Hold her
Stop.
hand. I got her.
My leg.
Why'd you lock the door?
Somebody just started a fucking fire and went over the fucking balcony, dude.
Look, there's a tent sitting here down.
Ah!
Hey, sit down. Sit down.
Hi.
Sit down.
Down.
There's a tent.
Stay right there, okay? Did you jump out the balcony?
Huh?
Did you jump out?
I just fell off the top.
Who did?
I did.
Okay, why'd you jump?
Because. See?
Whose apartment is that?
I don't know, I ate away.
Okay, deep breaths. Relax. Relax, okay?
No. Oh, my leg.
Because you jumped, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you jump off the second
I
story.
panicked because he fucking had me.
Well, we said we were the cops.
I was scared, dude.
Well, jumping off the balcony is kind of extreme. What'd you say?
I'm panicking, dude.
Okay, what were y'all fighting about? What were you fighting about?
She woke up and asked where her daughter was.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where she's at, dude.
Okay. No, we got her. She's in another apartment.
Huh?
Did you hit her? Did you hit her?
Huh?
Did you hit somebody?
She hit me and I hit her back.
She hit you first?
Yeah.
What'd you hit her with?
Huh?
What'd you hit her with?
My hand.
Your hand? Stay on the ground. Don't get up, okay? Whose apartment is that?
That's hers.
What's her name?
My leg.
Okay, we got rescue on the way. We'll check you out, okay? So whose apartment is that?
That's one of my cousin Fabian.
That's your cousin Fabian, and who else?
Michelle.
Michelle, is that his girlfriend?
Yeah.
Is that the girl you're fighting with?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't really fighting with her. She woke up, started screaming, and I said, hey, dude, I can't find your daughter, dude. Somebody's in here, dude.
You drinking last night?
Yeah.
Any drugs? No?
Dude.
Put her in the car.
Hey. Okay, do we bring my car up then, or?
Put her in your car, man.
Okay. Come on.
When the police arrived, they entered the second-story apartment and noticed smoke coming from behind the closed bathroom door. That's when the officers discovered an absolutely horrific and disturbing scene. They found Victoria's body partially wrapped in a burning blanket in the bathtub. An autopsy would reveal that she had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Even veteran officers who responded were devastated by the disturbing scene. What happens next is very odd. Michelle begins to tell investigators this wildly untrue story of how she, Gonzalez, and Kelly gave Victoria drugs and alcohol in order to calm her down before Gonzalez sexually assaulted her. Michelle says Kelly held Victoria down while she watched, all for sexual gratification. But none of this was true. A psychological profile of Michelle would say that her personality traits made her more susceptible to false confessions. Throughout the investigation, Michelle would continue to change her story and would make numerous false confessions. She even claimed to search for men on Plenty of Fish to engage in sexual acts with her children while she watched in pleasure. Michelle would say she could tell if the men were interested in this because she saw the signs and things they would do. It was determined that Victoria had died somewhere between 7:45 and 8:30 p.m. Michelle Martens, Fabian Gonzalez, and Jessica Kelly were all three arrested at the scene and charged with Victoria's murder. Investigators, who initially believed Michelle's insane story, would discover after checking cell phone data that Michelle and Gonzalez weren't even at the apartment at the time of Victoria's death. They were also able to disprove the sexual assault claim after finding DNA from an unidentified male on Victoria's body. The male DNA pointed more towards Kelly's claims that an unknown man had come by looking for Gonzalez.
Some guy just shows up. I left the door open, so he kind of walks in. He asked, where's Fable? And I told him he wasn't here.
Even Michelle's statements about sex trafficking her daughter weren't adding up, and no evidence was ever found to substantiate those claims. Michelle's psychological issues were so severe that while pregnant with Victoria, she denied even being pregnant until she gave birth. This new evidence would change the charges against both Michelle and Gonzalez, leading to Michelle pleading guilty to 1 count of reckless child abuse resulting in death, and 9 of the charges against Gonzalez, including second-degree murder and criminal sexual penetration, were dropped. However, in a shocking twist, Gonzalez admitted to sexually assaulting Victoria after she was murdered. After Victoria's death, the situation with Michelle's ex-boyfriend, David Hernandez, was brought to the media's attention. Since Hernandez was never charged with any crimes, the Albuquerque police began to receive public scrutiny. To make matters worse, a spokesperson for the Albuquerque police falsely claimed that the police department had investigated the report about Hernandez attempting to kiss Victoria, but that simply wasn't true. This discrepancy caused a huge scandal that resulted in the discipline and eventual firing of the spokesperson. Come to find out, there had actually been 5 separate reports to CPS from Michelle's household before Victoria's murder. It's believed that Michelle made most or possibly all of these calls, but to this day, that's unclear. No action from CPS was ever taken, and Victoria was never removed from the home. However, CPS claims that after conducting an internal audit, they felt the agency followed protocol and did a thorough job of investigating the 5 reports. In a jail phone call, Jessica's sister Crystal would urge Jessica to own up to her role in Victoria's death.
Everybody asked me, they're like, that's your sister, what do you think? I said, anybody's capable of anything, but no, you know what Dad always used to say, you did the crime, you do the time, you know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say right now is, you had any, like, I don't even want to say it over the phone, but if you had anything to do with it, man up, you know?
Yeah, I know that.
Later, Crystal would be kicked out of the courtroom for threatening Michelle.
White in a courtroom. Then a woman who blew kisses at our photographer and gestured for Jessica Kelly to smile was kicked out.
I love you. Bye. You guys are pieces of I'm gonna get you, Michelle. Get out. Baby, just go down. Leave the courtroom now.
In the end, Jessica Kelly would ultimately take a plea deal, pleading no contest to 6 charges, including reckless child abuse resulting in death, and was sentenced to 44 years in prison. 8 years after the brutal murder, Fabian Gonzalez was sentenced to 37.5 years behind bars for allowing Victoria's death to happen, dismembering her body, and trying to cover up the crime. In November of 2022, Michelle was the last of the trio to be sentenced. During the sentencing, her legal team touched on Victoria's character and how it reflected the way her mother raised her up until meeting Gonzalez. They also vouched for Michelle as a model inmate who had helped care for people during her 6 years behind bars and asked for her to be put into a community rehab program. The judge accepted this argument but put the focus back on Victoria's death. The judge ruled that any retroactive good behavior credit wouldn't be appropriate in this case, but did bring Michelle's sentence down to 12 years.
I think under the circumstances and for the reasons we discussed that I will mitigate it down to the 12 years of incarceration in the Department of Corrections.
In addition to the 12-year sentence, the judge ordered Michelle to continue her rehab at the Metropolitan Detention Center and to continue with therapy. Police are still searching for a 4th suspect in the case. While the man remains unidentified, he has already been charged with Victoria's murder. Prosecutors say that a man seeking gang retaliation against Gonzalez is likely Victoria's killer. However, the defense for Gonzalez doesn't buy the 4th suspect theory and says that Victoria's killer is already in jail and her name is Jessica Kelly.